Hi, everyone. And I want to welcome you to our workers' comp webinar today. This is going to be about how to effectively compete in the workers' comp arena. My name is Anae Agostini. I'm CEO of CID Insurance Programs. Uh, our instructor today will be Darby Fisher, who's our workers' comp underwriter, and Jacob Cole is our marketing coordinator who takes care of everything behind the scenes, makes our webinars run smoothly. So let's take a look at our logistics, which everyone should probably know. They've taken enough webinars uh, during COVID, but that you will be muted, but you will be able to hear, just not speak. But your voice is important, so please pose any questions that you have as we go anytime throughout the webinar, and we will stop and answer those questions for you. There'll be a short survey that will pop up after the webinar, and we really would appreciate your feedback. So what are we going to learn today? Well, the purpose is if we're going to learn to compete, you got to learn how to build a workers' comp book. And we want to better understand how there are different sizes of businesses, and in workers' comp, they've got to be treated differently in and how you approach them and how much time one versus the other will take. Then you want to learn from case studies. Darby's going to be going over some case studies that will actually broaden your workers' comp strategies. And then we're going to really dig into how to effectively compete in a competitive workers' comp arena. So I'm going to start off with this first slide and then turn it over to Darby. So this one, I want to start out by just talking a little bit about strategies for how to build your work comp book. First thing you need to do is I call it a helicopter view. Another term you could use was a big picture. It means stepping back and taking a look at what you want to accomplish and what a successful workers' comp book would look like. It's a balancing act between small, medium, and large size businesses that definitely need to be part of the equation, and there's an art to that Darby's going to talk about. Understanding the underwriting of the different size businesses is also what creates a competitive edge for you. So she's going to go over some examples of that will make it easier for you to understand the value of that. And then presenting value-added insurance solutions and competitive premiums is key to your workers' comp production. That's writing new business. And it's not just premiums. It's really about having some value-added insurance solutions. So without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Darby so she can dig into dig in and teach you.
Hi, everyone. So today we're going to be talking about some small business strategies and an overview of what those small businesses look like. So small businesses are the heart and soul of your workers' comp book. These policies are the foundation and are going to make up the majority of your book of business. That's because small businesses are typically easier and quicker to quote. Most of the time, you're receiving a proposal in the same day. Because of this, building your policy in force count will be faster. While a pro of binding small businesses is that it builds your policy in force count, you need to think about the other side to the equation, that small businesses won't increase the premium volume in the same way where a medium or large size business will. So it's important to incorporate other size premiums in your book, which we will discuss later on. So small businesses are more cookie cutter and they don't require the underwriting review that a medium or large business does. This is why you're getting the proposal more easily. Small businesses don't have as many exposures. The payroll and employee count are typically smaller. They have a good claims history and they aren't experience mod rated. Small businesses are typically your accounts categorized under $15,000 in premium. So most of your workers' comp book should be built on small business policies, anywhere from the minimum premium all the way up to 15,000, as these are the bread and butter of your book. Much of our book at CID is anywhere from this range because these policies are going to be the most stable regarding rate, premium, and renewal retention. So the most important way to get a competitive edge when quoting small businesses is obtaining a fast close. You want to know your carrier markets well, so working with an experienced underwriter who has the ability to go to market fast and efficiently is extremely important. You can always quote with multiple carriers, but one is always going to stand out with the best rates for that type of exposure. So knowing your markets well can quicken the quoting to buying time. Quoting fast and easily with that one carrier makes it easy for you to develop a competitive edge and get that fast close. Another way is you can also cross-sell your package policy to obtain their workers' comp, as it creates more business for your book and an increased retention for all of your insureds. So we're going to go into some target small business classes. Now, I mentioned rates when quoting small businesses. Rates are the most important with small business risks in particular, as they do not meet the premium threshold for additional credits. So be smart about writing small businesses and placing them with markets that are the most competitive for that type of exposure. I want to briefly mention a few target classes for small businesses where we are seeing really competitive rates being applied. A few are HOAs, retail merchants, physician offices, wholesale stores, auto businesses. A lot of our book at CID is built on risks such as these, so take advantage of the current market to build your small business book with these types of insureds. So we're going to move into our first case study, the small business, and this is something you're going to need to move through efficiently, but also quickly, and quote this fast. What do you want to be looking for when analyzing a small business? Well, I'm going to walk you through that. The below points are the key factors I look at when analyzing a risk. So we're going to walk through the business on how I would approach quoting this and the important strategies and knowledge I utilize in order to obtain a fast close. So our first small business happens to be an auto exposure, and it's one of those target class codes that are doing well with the carriers right now. I'm always looking for the entity type, which here it's an LLC. And this is just important because certain documents will be required from the insured when binding. The insured has one location in California with 3 employees and payroll slightly over $200,000. I'm taking a look. There's no experience mod, which isn't surprising because it's not a factor with small businesses because the premium is not great enough to qualify. There's no claims. They do have industry experience, which is good. So all around, this is a good risk that I can quote and get a proposal back in the same day. These are the highlighted points I need when quoting small businesses. So I would take this to the markets that I do know well and that do well with auto exposures, and I would be able to get something very quickly and be able to present it to the insured. If this was a new venture, I just want to mention, I would be looking at it the exact same. So businesses like this case study are great for building your policy in force count in your book of business. They're easy and fast to quote with carriers, and they have a great retention ratio. We're going to move forward into strategies for medium-sized businesses. You can't build a book of business on small business alone. So let's talk about what I call the sweet spot. The next stage to consider is writing medium-sized businesses in order to help build a solid workers' comp premium book. While a small business helps to build your policies in force ratio, you need the medium-sized businesses to help the premium volume build within your book. These types of businesses produce premium anywhere from $15,000 to $50,000. Medium-sized businesses are the ideal premium size because you're staying under the radar of the big insurance retailers that want large business risks. And because of this, they generate a better retention ratio in your book of business because of the experience mod, which we will touch on later. You need to balance your book with these size businesses as it becomes more competitive and profitable for you. Medium-sized businesses in general incur a lower loss ratio, but that's not always the case. Companies of this size have the potential to have a lot of claims when they grow, especially when there's poor supervision. In addition, this premium range is when their first experience mod is assigned, and it typically, when it's initially assigned, is a credit, resulting in premium savings. For those who need a refresher, anything above 100 is a debit, and below is a credit. Since the claims activity seems to be more stable in this $15,000 to $50,000 range, more often than not, the experience mod is going to be on the lower end. While they do incur a lower loss ratio, I do want to mention it's really important to keep an eye on the insured's claims activity, and we do encourage brokers to order loss runs at any time throughout the policy. Since claims are reported directly from the insured to the carrier, you're not notified that a claim has occurred, and nobody likes surprises at the time of the renewal. Although middle business submissions require more work than a small business, they're not as much of a headache compared to a larger business. You typically won't see non-renewal notices, which can occur due to a class of business no longer being written by the carrier, or a major debit on the policy due to the experience mod. So this is the perfect sweet spot in between the small and large. Um, so it's important to be smart about writing any coverage, but focus on the businesses that are doing well. And here are some of those middle-sized businesses, these target classes I have found to be stable and competitively priced. Just like small businesses, knowing your markets well helps ease the quoting process, as you know which markets to look to when quoting medium-sized premium. Some of those I've seen as of late are bars and taverns, restaurants, schools, hotels and motels, property management, apartment, and condo operations. So, writing middle-sized businesses are imperative to effectively compete in the workers' comp arena. We're going to go over a medium-sized business case study. And again, I'm walking through those highlighted factors that are important when quoting a risk. This business is a restaurant in California with one location. They're a corporation, so I would check on the California Secretary of State to confirm the owners of the business. Their payroll is just over 500,000 with close to 20 employees, resulting in premium of about $26,000. I'm looking at all the key factors as I would a small business risk. However, what differentiates this is I'm reviewing the risk summary in more depth as there are claims and this is experience mod rated. We talked about small businesses where there's no negotiation in premium. Well, with middle-sized businesses, discount credits can be applied given the overall quality of the risk, taking into consideration payroll, years in business, claims history, and experience mod. So always see what's available to your insured when quoting a medium-sized business. As I mentioned before, middle-sized businesses usually have an experience mod under 100%, and our case study is rated at 92. While the experience mod is at 92%, this is where I would encourage you to keep an eye on the claims activity throughout the policy, because in a year's time, the experience mod can easily go from a credit to a debit. So having frequent conversations with the business to check on the supervision and hiring practices within the company will help the insured stay under 100%. The WCIRB is the one who determines and assigns experience mods by comparing the losses of one company to all the other companies in the same industry that are in similar size. So for our example, based off Coastal Foods payroll and claims history, the business does qualify for an experience mod rating. So from review of the submission to quoting with the carrier, we were able to bind this risk on the third day. Now that we have discussed the importance of small and middle businesses, we're going to talk about the big fish, your large businesses. Large businesses are essential to building a workers' comp book as they add fast production volume to your book of business. However, you do need to keep in mind that it's one large policy you can easily lose in a year's time. So seeking out large businesses will be more challenging, not just for new business, but also renewals, as there's a lot of competition with the size of premium. A lot more strategic planning goes into large businesses. Even when you do have the account, you bind it, you get that new business, you have to be thinking about the renewal term a few months out, making sure you're quoting the business with other markets in order to obtain the most competitive premium. Because if you aren't, you can guarantee another agent is. You'll have far less of these policies, but you'll need to pay attention to them more than any other. Large businesses are going to be those over $50,000. So your businesses that qualify as larger accounts are the ones with greater exposures, more accidental exposure, and higher rated class codes. Businesses such as contracting and manufacturing are some of those larger businesses because they may have multiple locations, higher payroll, or multi state exposures. As you become more qualified, you will begin to attract larger sized businesses, and I can help you bind them. During COVID, we saw that the workers' comp industry managed to get through unscathed. However, coming out of that, we're now starting to see the carriers tightening with risks that have a poor loss history, and it's showing painfully so in the insured's experience mod. So, one strategy for larger businesses is implementing carrier services such as customized loss control and claims management services. Whether they have a lot of claims or just a few, it's a huge benefit to their business. Many of these large accounts aren't always offered these types of services or don't take advantage of them. This is inevitably going to help the insured's business in avoiding claims. So when you're presenting this quote offering these services that the carrier provides, it gives you that edge that another agent may not be doing. For insureds that have a large premium or high risk exposure, I highly recommend you present this to them when giving them a quote. Each of our carriers has their own guidelines for quoting high experience mods, but generally the markets we're appointed with can do quoting upwards of 200%. This, you know, is actually really great given how bad that experience mod is, but right now our carriers are, if they see an upwards turn in the claims, they are willing to give that business a chance. So before we get into our large business case study, I do want to mention a few classes of business that have competitive rates right now. These are going to be manufacturing, landscaping, contractors, painting, plumbing, electrical, and janitorial services such as commercial and residential. We are seeing the contracting market opening up, and more carriers are wanting to write these types of risks when quality. So we are seeing competitive rates being applied. Something to keep in mind definitely for future quoting. So we're going to walk through this large size business and how I would approach quoting this and the important strategies I utilize in order to bind the quote. So this risk has a plumbing exposure with one location in Los Angeles. They have close to 40 employees with over 1.4 million in payroll. You'll notice there's two class codes, 5183 and 5187. So with contracting risks, you need to pay attention to this. A lot of the times they are broken out by hourly wage. So when you're receiving that application, make sure payroll is broken out by employee hourly wage. Otherwise, the classifications will be wrong when you're quoting. As I'm doing a review of the risk, which obviously stands out to me is going to be the 134% experience mod. This means the business will be receiving a 34% debit on their policy. So I would definitely be requesting physical loss runs for at least the past 5 years to review the claims they've incurred. So as I'm reviewing the claims history, they have incurred over $100,000 in losses, and 3 claims are still open. So an experience mod is a rolling figure, so it may continue to increase as long as those claims are still open. That's why it's really important that the insured utilizes loss control carrier services, and that can be your competitive edge to mention when presenting the quote to the insured. So I would be looking for information on the claims as to whether the injured employee or employees are still working for the business, if the insured has implemented any safety training or measurements since the claim occurred, and what does their supervision look like within the business. These are things that the carrier will ask, so it saves time getting in front of the questions you know are coming. And this can be a determining factor also when asking for premium savings to be applied to the quote. Since the insured has been with two carriers, I would want to know if this was carrier or insured initiated. So were they non-renewed or canceled by the carrier, or is the insured moving each renewal to a different carrier based on premium amount? Um, this is something that is really important because if it is insured initiated, when the renewal is coming up each year, the insured does have a history of quoting and moving their policy to other markets. So as I mentioned before, you want to get in front of that a few months out before another agent beats you to it. So after reviewing the loss history, the experience mod, and the Accord 130, I submitted my risk to the markets that I know are doing well with contracting exposures, and I was able to quote and bind the policy within 5 days. So I'm going to actually turn this over to Anae now.
Thank you, Darby. That was a great presentation, great information, and she is a great workers' comp underwriter. So you guys can really count on her to actually help you build your book of workers' comp. So in closing, let's sort of summarize what we talked about. Small business will make up the biggest portion of your policy in force count, right? And that's why in a numbers game, your book's going to look like you've got a zillion small business policies, but they produce less premium volume. So that's why the medium-sized businesses are essential. That's that sweet spot that Darby talked about, because you need to build premium volume as well. And then it's if you're ready for it, you go after those large size workers' comp accounts. Sometimes they come to you. They will generate higher commission revenues, which is always great because we have to earn a living. So those larger ones, but you can utilize Darby to help guide you because there is a difference between small, medium, and large, and she's there to help you, advise you on how you can competitively compete. And then just remember, always, and this is in general, when handling, trying to build your commercial book of business, step back and take a helicopter view of what you're trying to accomplish, and because you need clarity when you're down in the doingness, which we all can get busy in service and things like that. We are caught up in that, and you lose your perspective. So remember that helicopter view. And that ends our webinar today. I want to thank you for joining us. Darby's information is right there on the screen, Darby at CIDinsurance.com. Her phone number is there. And you will, if you have not worked with Darby, you will be pleasantly surprised. She's very good at what she does, and she will be able to get that competitive quote that you need to bind for workers' comp. Again, you can submit your applications today at submissions@CIDinsurance.com. Make sure also that you visit our website, CIDinsurance.com. We have lots of marketing tools. We have proposal templates. We have educational tools, and we have lots of webinars, recorded webinars that you can learn about different coverages, how to write certain classes of business, and so it's a very valuable. We designed it for you, our retail brokers. So thank you again for joining us, and we look forward to doing some business with you. Bye.